of this later. Okay, so we're now recording. I think this will only take about 15 minutes, maybe a little less. My agenda for today, I just want to review with you connotation and denotation. Okay, that's kind of what we're going to be working with. Then I'll go over your homework. I do want to just say, maybe you kind of want to take some notes during this because it's kind of confusing. I'm going to jump around from a lecture, like a PowerPoint to a worksheet. So just kind of bear with me. We've got a lot of moving parts today, but what you're going to be doing for homework isn't bad. Not bad at all. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. Okay, and I'll retake attendance at the end here to make sure I got everyone. All right, so here we go. So hopefully you can see each other now. So what I'm going to start off with here today is connotation and denotation. So if you're not familiar with connotation and denotation, if you don't remember what that is, totally okay. If it's kind of ringing a bell, that's good. We last talked about connotation and denotation when we read Into the Wild. And we talked about this a lot when we talked about tone. Remember, tone, it's like your feeling towards something, and you guys had the opportunity at that point to decide whether you looked at Chris McCandless in a romantic lens with a romantic tone or a realistic one. Okay, so if that's kind of ringing a bell. But your objective today is to be able to understand how the connotation of a word can change the meaning of a sentence. How the connotation of a word can alter the meaning of a sentence. So you're probably thinking, what does that mean? Okay, well, let's get back to some of the basics here. So connotation and denotation, if you just want to look at the denotation part here on the screen, when I say denotation, I'm talking about the literal meaning of a word. So if you have the word sad, right, or if you have the word heartbreak, if you wanted the denotation of the word heartbreak, you could go on Google, you could look up the definition, and you'd get it. Like the denotation is literally just the definition word for word, okay? The connotation is a little bit different. When we talk about the connotation of words, we talk about the feelings that are associated with them. So the connotation of heartbreak is a lot heavier than the denotation, right? Like you talk about heartbreak, you think about like really upsetting, really emotional, life-changing, life-altering. Like there's so many things that go into it. So why does it matter? Connotation is the feeling or impression given by a word. So you guys are smart, right? You're writers. So you can use connotation to your advantage to kind of imply a certain feeling in your college essay, in your argumentative paper. But it's even more important because sorry, can you guys just like a titch quieter? Oh, sorry. You're fine. Sorry, my dad's having lunch. But anyway, so whereas the connotation is more so like the feeling with it, and it's really important now because you are living in an age where you're constantly being bombarded with ads on Facebook, or not Facebook, but advertisements, right? People trying to sell you things. Politicians message, people trying to give you messages of certain things. And our politicians and our sellers, they're all using connotation to put a spin on words. So it's your job to be able to recognize that and to be able to use it in your own writing. The last part here, sorry about this, guys, hang in here with me, okay? I'm almost done. Talking about bias. People use connotation, they use specific words to show their own bias, okay? So if we're going to see what this looks like. If a politician really wants you to see their message and kind of get on their side, they have a bias there, right? They're trying to promote an act. They're trying to pass legislation. So the connotation matters. So let's see some actual examples of this before I just keep talking about it, okay? We're going to see an example of what connotation and denotation look like. All right. So what I'm going to do is we have two sentences here. We have example A and example B. These two sentences are the exact same, except they have one or two words that are different. Okay. They have one word that's different, and the connotation of that word changes the meaning of the sentence. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to read both of these sentences, and I'm going to ask one of you. Okay, so if you're kind of dozing off, I'm going to ask one of you to tell me, how does this one word, how does the connotation of that word change the meaning of the sentence? Okay, so example A. She couldn't believe her eyes. The neighborhood was comprised of incredibly cheap houses. The quality of the houses was shocking. Okay, example A is saying these houses are cheap. They are cheap houses. Think about the feelings you get from the word cheap, things that are implied when you use the word cheap. Example B, think about how this sentence sounds different. She couldn't believe her eyes. The neighborhood was comprised of incredibly affordable homes. The quality of the homes was shocking. Okay, so we had cheap and we had affordable. Could someone unmute their microphone and just kind of say, how does the meaning of the sentence change when you use cheap rather than affordable? If anyone would just want to speak to this for a moment here, and then we can move on.
It goes from being like something that's looked down upon, I guess, like cheap, like is looked down upon, to something like affordable, which is something like that's smart, or you're making a good move, rather than being cheap. It's like looked as you're just, cheap, I guess.
Yeah, excellent, TK. Absolutely. Yeah. Does anyone else want to add in, like, what do you like when you think of cheap rather than affordable? When you hear of cheap house, does it sound like it's going to be a really nice house?
No,
No.
I think when I hear cheap, it's like something that's like gonna break, or it's it doesn't work as well. But when you hear the word like affordable, it's like it's better than average, I should say, or
Yeah.
it's like good.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you, TK and Carrie. Absolutely. So you guys got this already. Okay, you're really good at this. We don't have to spend a long time on examples. What I have on the screen right now, this is what your homework is going to look like. Okay, I'm going to give you an option of phrases here in a moment. In a moment, I'm going to go towards a worksheet. But for right now, this is what your homework will look like. So if you notice here, I took example A as my phrase, okay? And I put my phrase up here. And I really looked at the word cheap. That's the word I really looked at and I focused at with this homework. So the connotation, I said the word cheap makes the house sound like they're not very nice. They're composed of weak materials, right? And then the denotation, I put the word cheap and I wrote the definition. So exactly what you guys are talking about here. Number 3, this really goes with what TK and Carrie said. What is the effect? What effect does the connotation have on the meaning of the sentence? And Carrie and TK both did really nicely with saying, when you say cheap rather than affordable, it doesn't sound like that nice of a place to live. It doesn't sound like it has good material. It doesn't sound really sturdy. And lastly, then, number 4, what is the impact of the narrator's diction? In other words, can you detect a bias in their description or a way that they want the listeners to react? Okay, so if you heard someone say, yeah, there's got a lot of cheap houses in that neighborhood, what is their bias? What do they kind of want you to see? What do they want you to react as? What do they want you to get out of that? So you could say, for number 4, the bias sounds like the narrator does not find the house up to living standards, might not be interested in living there. Okay, so this is one example. All right, and it's going to make a lot more sense here in a couple minutes. I'm just going to go through one more example with you guys, and then we'll fly through to the homework. Okay, so the last one here, thank you for your patience, you guys. For the following sentences, how does the bolded word alter the meaning of the sentence? Example A, the streets were crowded with protests. The protesters lined up and down Franklin Street demanding for a change in the busing policy. Protests. Example B, the streets were crowded with riots. The rioters lined up and down Franklin Street demanding a change in busing policy. Which one sounds like the protest, or which sentence makes Franklin Street sound like it's under control and things are okay, like things are under control? Example A or example A? Yeah, example A. Good. So we'll just move on here then. Again, this is moving forward, this is where this slide here that you're seeing, this is going to be what you'll see on Google Classroom, okay? So you're going to be doing your homework on a slide like this, okay? So I'm going to go through now. I'm going to jump. That was kind of a review, an introduction. I'm going to jump to Google Classroom right now. And if you guys want to follow me there, you are more than welcome to go there as well. I'm going to open up exercise 4, connotation, and Google Slide. So on this slide, on this topic, you'll see we've got one slide here. This is where you're going to do your homework. Okay, this slide is where you're actually going to write your homework, and this slide is what you're going to turn in. The worksheet attached is where you'll get your homework from, okay? So if you're kind of zoning out, now would be a really good time to come back to me to kind of redirect yourself, because I'm going to go over your homework right now, okay? So if you want to take some notes, this is where it could get a little confusing. So on this worksheet, exercise 4, connotation, I have 4 different phrases from Serial, episode 1, okay? I have 4 different phrases. What you're going to do is you can pick any one of these, okay? You're going to pick one. If you want to do more, that's fine, but you're only assigned to do one. You're going to select, well, we'll just start with number 1. Let's say you do number 1. What does it mean when someone is loosey-goosey with details? It has the stamped time there from the episode. How is denotation and connotation different from lying or committing perjury? Okay, so that's kind of getting you focused in. So the phrase down here, Rabia gets a little loosey-goosey with the details. That's the phrase from Serial. I've given you here the denotation and the connotation. So this is what you would do. Let's say you're doing number 1 for your homework. You're going to take this phrase and you're going to copy and paste it right here to the slide. Then you're going to define the denotation. Okay, so it's lying, or you could do committing perjury. You're going to write that word and you're going to define it. Then you're going to go up to connotation and you're going to write, what is the connotation of loosey-goosey? Like what's implied with loosey-goosey? What do you think about when you hear that? If someone's loosey-goosey with details. Okay, what is loosey-goosey kind of, what's the effect of that? What's implied there? That's 1 and 2. You'll go over to 3 then. What effect does the connotation have on the meaning of the sentence? So instead of saying Rabia is a liar with details, instead of saying that, they said Rabia is kind of loosey-goosey when she talks about details. So number 3, you'd say, loosey-goosey is, how does that change the meaning of the sentence? Okay, because it definitely does. Then for the last question, you're just going to write, Sarah Koenig she's our journalist and she's our narrator in this podcast. So what effect or what does Sarah Koenig want you to think if she says, if she describes this person as loosey-goosey rather than a liar, right? Like, how does she want you to kind of view these characters or view Rabia in particular if you do number 1? What's her bias there? Okay. So that's your homework. I just want to reiterate, you are not answering the question on the worksheet here. You're taking one of these and you're going to answer the questions on the slide. Okay. So now that I've talked your ear off for about 14 minutes, what questions do you guys have? Because I'm sure you have some.
I have a question. If we do more than 1, can we get extra credit?
So Izzy, that's a great question. If you do, well, I'm going to share my screen. Well, I'll just tell you, numbers 1 and 2 are very laid out and very easy. Okay, so if you do, well, I don't want to say they're very easy, but they're very, it's laid out for you. If you do 1 or 2, the most possible points you can get is 8 out of 10. Okay, do number 3, you can get 9 out of 10 points. And if you do number 4, you can get 10 out of 10. 4 is the most challenging. So you can definitely do more than 1, and I can consider some extra credit. Otherwise, if you don't want to do extra, think about going for the most challenging one right out the gate. But that was a long answer. Short answer, Izzy, is yes. Okay, I haven't determined that. I'm kind of on the spot there, but yeah, I'll consider that.
So like I could do all 4 of them?
Yeah, I don't think it would be a ton of extra credit, but you could do that.
Okay.
Yeah. If anyone else is interested, you heard it here. You can do more for extra credit.
And when is this due?
This is not due until Tuesday at midnight. But I do want to say Tuesday we're going to move on. We're going to listen to episode 2. So you will have other things from me on Tuesday, but I want to give you plenty of time to do this. Good question. Any other questions? Anything at all?